Well, let's get to the video.
All right, now that we paid the bills, it's time to get to work. So we're just gonna discuss four-man CQB and the responsibilities of those men as they conduct that CQB in the structure. So come on with us, let's get it on. All right, so you see our guys are here at the doorway in the stack. We have three guys here. I'm gonna be the fourth guy. Okay, so who runs the stack? That's right, the number two guy does. So number two guy runs the stack. He's holding on to the number one's kit or his shoulder or something like that because he doesn't want the number one guy to go in by himself, because as we all know, singleton CQB sucks. You want to have another cat in there, at least one. The technique works best with four, but certainly it can work with two. So he's got his hand on this guy until he has enough combat power to conduct what he wants. He does a quick look behind him to make sure he's got that combat power. He does in this case, and he'll give the number one man a squeeze. Please do so. Without moving anywhere, Door has his rifle ready to go at any threat at the front of the door here. He'll take a pregnant pause so the number two man and the number three man can hold their rifles how they want to get ready to infill the room, okay? And then as he starts moving, we want to reach simultaneity, all our men going through the portal as quickly as possible. And we'll break down those responsibilities in just one moment. You can see here, some of our men are at a low ready, some are at a high port. I don't really care, you the viewer, how you do this, as long as you can get, again, from A to Z, complete the mission in a safe manner. Me personally, I'm gonna have my rifle closer and more contacted with me in a pocket of my shoulder and more of a low ready than a high ready here. But either will work. Now, as the number two man gives a squeeze, we will make entry into this room and we'll show you the responsibilities therein. All right, let's talk about responsibilities in the room. As the one man comes in, he's gonna decide which way he wants to go. Everything being equal here, the door was open. He decided to go in a button hook. He clears his corner immediately, and he goes to his point of domination up on the wall. He takes two corners, 1, 2. There he plants his flag. That's his point of domination. His primary sector of fire comes all the way to this corner where the number two man will be momentarily. And he comes back over to unknowns and whatever else needs to happen. Once that is finished, he turns to find work. Everything being equal, there is no more work in this room. He'll lower his rifle and start looking for work, as in going into the stack to the next room of the structure. Number two guy makes entry, snapshot, clears his immediate threat, clears his corner. His primary responsibility is all the way to the number one man's 1 meter off that man, which translates into about a foot off his rifle barrel. Now, again, when number two man, primary sector of fire is here, he comes back to secondary sector of fire here. Any unknowns that are in the room, when he finds there is nothing and everything being equal again, nothing else is here, he finds work. Most likely, he's gonna come back to the door he entered and get ready to get on the stack and further clearing of the structure. The number three man comes in, takes a snapshot, goes opposite the man on the way in front of him. He also clears his immediate sector. As he does so, he sees this as a center-fed room. He splits this room in half, starting left of the center room, and it collapses primary to the number one man's rifle, secondary all the way to the number two man's rifle. Again, he's gonna stay off the wall and slide in right about here. He doesn't want to come into the center of the room at all. Number four man, he comes into the room. He goes opposite the man in front of him. His snapshot tells him this is a center-fed room. He takes care of anything that's right in front of him as immediate threat. He takes this room and splits it in half, overlapping to the right, moving to his left, collapses his primary sector of fire to here, secondary to there. Once there's nothing left in this room, he finds work. In this case, he turns immediately to the portal and gets ready to be the number one man. We covered center-fed room, using four men in the points of domination technique. We talked about the responsibilities in the stack. We talked about the responsibilities inside the structure, inside the room. And we talked about primary sectors of fire, secondary sectors of fire. We talked about staying off the wall, staying out of the middle of the room. And we also talked about finding work. We're gonna focus on a corner-fed room. Very simple, very easy. And I hope you enjoy what you're gonna be looking at. We're gonna try to explain to you what happens outside of the room what happens inside the room. Responsibilities outside, responsibilities inside, and it'll be fun. So you should join us. All right, so what we have today is CQB corner fed room. So outside of the door, we have our number one man, right? He doesn't want to come too close. He doesn't want to come on in here. Put your rifle in front of there. He doesn't want to do that, what the Navy might call periscoping. I'm not sure what else you'd call it other than it's just dangerous. We don't want anybody on the inside to know we are on the outside. Everything being equal here, this is a corner fed room and it is wide open. The number one man can see that it's wide open. He pauses here and waits for the rest of his team. As you can see, my number two man has my number one man by his kit. He wants to make sure that number one guy is not too over exuberant and go in by himself. When he's ready and has enough combat power to take this room, and he does, he's gonna change this grip to a squeeze. He's gonna give the number one man a squeeze. The number one man will pause slightly, so this enables the number two man and the rest of his mates to get their hands on the rifle and get ready to make entry. Squeeze, on you, go ahead. Let's go inside and check it out. All right, so when the number one man comes in, that's your cue. So number one man comes in, he takes a snapshot, clears immediate threat, clears his corner, and while he's moving towards the point of domination, he collapses the sector of fire to his primary sector and back over to his secondary sector. And now he's also holding his rifle on something that might be unknown, whether it's a door, whether it's a window, whether it's a non-combatant or a combatant, and he's ready to find work. The number two man, as he makes entry, he takes a snapshot, he clears immediate threat, he comes in and clears his corner, immediately collapses his primary sector of fire to the number one man, back over to the unknown or known that he might have to hold on to, and then again, he's going to find work. The number three man, opposite the man in front of him, takes a snapshot, clears the immediate threat. He splits the room at the corner and collapses in his direction of travel all the way to the number one man for his primary, all the way to the number two man for his secondary, and now he's finding work. Number four man enters, opposite the man in front of him, clears the immediate threat, and he also splits the room. This time he splits it close to the right-hand side of the room. He also collapses his rifle in the direction of travel to the number two man and then all the way back to the number one man. When everybody's finished, it's time to find work. Once they find work, the most likely path they will do is orient themselves towards the place where they came in and start resuming clearance of the structure. And that is how you clear corner fed room. We covered responsibilities on the outside. We covered what a number two guy does to controlling the stack. We covered what the number one guy does. And on the inside, of course, you got to see exactly where those primary and secondary sectors of fire are. Keeping in mind, you want to stay off the walls. You don't want to go into the middle of the room, right? And you don't want to shoot your buddy.